I'm sitting down and I'm going to pick out an agent because I want to sell my home and I want to buy another home.
Right.
What's step one in finding the right agent?
Oh, I'm exhausted already.
Yeah, I know.
Woo! Unlocking Saratoga's real estate secrets. Welcome to Selling Saratoga, a podcast about the real Saratoga real estate scene in one of the Northeast's hottest and fastest growing markets. Our listeners are going to gain expert insight on the best ways to make decisions about home improvement, investment, design, buying, selling, and everything in between.
I'm Helen Mastrion.
And I'm Noel McLaren. Together, Helen and I have the keys to your future in Saratoga real estate. Hi, everybody. On today's episode of Selling Saratoga, we are going to discuss market trends, real estate horror stories. But first, today's podcast is going to be all about realtor relationships and basically how to find that perfect client-agent match. Who's going to be the best agent for you and help you find the best home for your family. We brought in our special guest, Heidi Rotter, and she also is the host of the American Dream show. Heidi, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me, you guys. You're amazing. I'm so excited to be a part of this. And so a little about me. So yes, I own a real estate company for 6 years. I've been a real estate agent for 15. And I have 3 beautiful kids. They range from 21 to 13 and 4. And, I love what I do. I get to be a part of the American Dream TV, which is also very special to me because it's a way to give back to our community. I get to I get to produce the show. I get to choose what to put on there with the help of the show itself.
Can you explain to the people that don't already know what the American Dream TV is?
Yeah, so it's a show that embraces our communities, right? And showcasing certain businesses and people like yourself and getting out to the public what you're doing. So for example, we just did Overdressed to Impress at Saratoga Living magazine. That was awesome to be a part of. I showcased Maple Ski Ridge in Rotterdam, June Farms, and I did a private tour. So it's all within the capital region.
Okay, perfect. But also just another way that our little metropolis, if you will, is getting its name out there. That's
correct,
fantastic.
Yeah.
How did our area get chosen for this kind of honor to be featured on the show?
So Craig, the owner, creator of the show, he's from California, and he started out there, I believe it was 11 years ago. And so there's still people that host. They chose real estate agents to be the hosts of the show. So there's actually now 10 real estate agents that are hosts of the show. And basically, up and coming areas or areas that haven't reached yet, they came out to us last spring. Interviewed a ton of real estate agents to see which ones might be the right fit. And they just know that we have. So I got picked.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It was
big
very,
deal.
very cool to be a part of it. And I don't think I talk about it enough, honestly. I'm trying to increase that
Right.
They chose real estate agents because we supposedly know all the cool places to go, the people to interview,
right.
What is happening where I'm like, are you sure you want me?
Right.
I'm working all day, busting my butt, going home and being with my kids, and I'm like a hermit. Well, I don't know what's out there. Are you sure? So that's why I really want to talk about it more and more so that, people will make more recommendations to me so that I can showcase what really deserves to be, honestly, on a national level.
Right.
To be, because it's on.
It's a national show.
It is. So it's streaming all over major platforms, you name it, Apple, Roku, Amazon Fire, HGTV is coming up this spring too. So it's not all of the episodes are being put on those specific TV stations, but, very select ones are being chosen for that. But they are all being aired on that streaming level,
really cool.
which is super awesome.
So what other communities throughout the country have been selected to be on American Dream? I just want to know, where we kind of, who else are we playing with? Where do we stand? Yeah.
Yeah, so, major cities in California, Texas, Arizona, so Las Vegas was just.
Oh, wow.
Hawaii, all over the place. I believe they're talking about other countries and stuff, so it's huge.
It's a big deal for us to be selected.
Yes, exactly.
I've talked to a lot of real estate agents in the development of this podcast. You all are so different. Every real estate agent I've met, and I've met quite a few over the last few months putting together this podcast, has their own kind of vibe. How do I know how to pick the perfect agent for me? Because they're going to be my guide through this process of buying and selling. So, Helen, what's your take on that?
It's very subjective. I think it has to be the right fit. Your realtor, whether it's on the buying side or the selling side, is going to be your best friend for a couple of months, if not longer than that. I have clients who have been looking for a house for over a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long relationship.
Exactly. And if you're not comfortable with that person, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It really needs to be the right fit.
How do you go about that process before you get in too deep with that realtor? Is it just trial and error? Is it like...
It's word of mouth. It's asking your friends what experience they've had with people, what they liked, what they didn't like. And then it's interviewing. If you talk to a person, if they come to your house and they're there for an hour and you can't wait to get them the hell out the door, that's not the right fit.
Yeah.
So it just takes time. It's an investment that's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Usually word of mouth, though, would you agree, Heidi, is the best thing, because if your friends have had a good experience, they will share that with you.
Right. Okay.
So reviews on Zillow, on Realtor.com. Look at people's reviews, look at their sales, look at their experience. Where do they sell? What's their expertise in what market? It all plays into choosing the right person.
Well, and you can have two very equal review-wise and just, success-wise agents, but maybe one agent would work for me and another agent would work better for, I don't know, somebody else. It's just personality matches, right? It's almost like matchmaking, right? It's kind of like dating. You got to find your person.
Right.
So somebody who might work for one person might not work for another. You kind of have to be friends with them and have a niche, would you say? I mean, that's kind of what's inspiring about Heidi to me, is I feel like you've found your niche, and we've talked about that.
So, I had started my career 15 years ago. I'm just going to fast forward to about 6 years ago when I decided to go out on my own and get my real estate broker's license and so on. I was with a company at the time where they were my only client. My job was to acquire properties for them to flip and to, wholesale. So I was just very busy constantly. I averaged 70 homes a year with them. It was their image, their picture. Our community didn't know that I was a real estate agent. And if I did get somebody who was a family member or a friend that wanted me to buy or sell a house with them, that was frowned upon. And so I got my license, which was really hard. It's not exactly easy. I'm not a test taker. It took some time. And so when I did it, I'm like, okay, I could create my own look. So I did. I sat on my couch and I'm planning and I'm like, what's it going to be called? And on top of it, I was going through, the thoughts in my head. It hadn't even been discussed yet. It's a separation, of divorce. And so now I have two things on my shoulders and in my head, and it's heavy. And I decided to, leave him, the brokerage and the husband.
Right.
So Brass Tacks was born, if I may. Brass Balls was coming to mind. I felt very ballsy. And so at the time, I'm like, tax. What about brass tacks? Let's get down to brass tacks. It's a slogan. It's something that you hear. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Brass tacks.
Well, and you said it had something to do with like the tacks on your furniture too, the couch.
Yes,
You were looking at them or something?
I was, and I was on Instagram, and I'm looking at Black Rifle Coffee, and I'm like, ooh, brass tacks, tactical. So I'm like, okay, I can work this in, tactical. I have my ways of doing business, and I'm going to stand out more. And then, the whole thing got put together, and I made my exit from the last company, started mine, and it just I realized at that point, I'm like, I don't have any clients. So on top of it, I realized I laser focused on getting myself out into the community and getting out there, that I just didn't even realize I didn't have any business. So that was also surprising to me. Could you imagine? But anyway, the first client that I got was actually a veteran, and I said, listen, I got like a photo shoot. I picked 5 different images for my signs to go in the lawn. Which one would you like in the lawn? And I happened to have one that was an American flag hat. And he's like, this one. And
because he was a veteran.
He was a veteran.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? And the only reason I had that one was because I was a part of flips for so long. I had one with overalls. And yes, I thought maybe I was going to help out more investors. And I was just like, "Urgh." So I loved that. And it took off.
Well, yeah, because that became part of your image and your brand. And when we talk about real estate agencies and about relationships when it comes to clients, and finding your client niche is so important. So I'm sure, I mean, you can elaborate on this. If you got one veteran, hey, maybe word of mouth, like Helen said, oh, she's the girl who takes care of veterans. She is brass tacks. That's her brand.
The girl in the hat.
The girl in the hat. And that's who you became. And so did you happen to have after that, did that become a bit of a niche for you?
Yeah, it did. It actually did. It took off, and I had, people, like you said, he referred me to somebody. I had another person, and I started to use that. I don't want to say to my advantage, but I went that route. You know what I mean? To see if that would be how I could take off. And it's honestly, I mean, fast forward to 6 years later, I'm like, damn, you're doing good, girl. Now what? Now what else can we do? Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's always evolving. And I think in any business, you're constantly looking at yourself and saying, okay, is there anything you want to adjust, change, pivot,
Right.
And as far as the, relationships and clients, and to that point is, when I sit down with a potential client or, whatnot, and they're looking to possibly buy a home, I always want to sit down with them and see if we mesh, because like you said, you're together. I don't want to have bees in my mind, like fluttering around, like annoying, right? You don't want that feeling in the pit of your stomach. You don't want to work with that. It's not the right fit then. Right. So it's all about meeting and seeing if you like the way you guys communicate, and do you feel like you could work together and trust me to work with you and get the job done for you, because this is the biggest investment of your life.
That's a really good point. It's not just from the seller or buyer's perspective. It's also, I mean, it's not like we just want to work well. You also want to be happy because you're going to be with us all the time.
No, and another point is that if you sit down with somebody and you need to express your style to them.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very good point.
Do you want somebody, when I talk to my clients, I say we're a team. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to share my expertise. I'm going to share my knowledge, but I'm not going to tell you take off every picture in your house if you don't want to. You've lived in the house for how many years? It's your house. You cannot so when people are interviewing an agent, the style you should ask them, are you pushy? You should ask those questions. And usually just from the give and take of a sit down, you can get that, because it comes out.
Okay, so step one, Helen, I'm sitting down and I'm going to pick out an agent because I want to sell my home and I want to buy another home. I am going to set up a meeting with an agent, or let's not even start with that. Let's start from ground zero. I just want to buy a home and sell my old home. Right. What's step one in finding the right agent?
Well,
I'm exhausted already.
Yeah, I know.
Woo!
People, a lot of times people go online. Obviously, people go online.
Go to the internet.
And I've had clients who went online in Saratoga, saw that I sold, because you could see where agents usually saw that most of my business was in Saratoga Springs, read my reviews, found out that I was a foodie, and called me. And they were like,
she likes to eat. This is my girl.
And the very funny thing is that and I love these guys. They're one of my favorite clients. They're a husband and wife, bought their first house. His review of me on Zillow talks about that. And I just had to laugh, because it was like, okay, that's who I am. That's why you picked me. I mean, in the end, his mother was a realtor. Mom came on all the showings. They were like, if you could handle my mom coming with me, which of course, parents are involved. You have to speak to everybody. It's not, she wanted him to be comfortable. And so did I.
When they do take the time to review you and they make it personal like that, it's so helpful, because it really does. You want to work with the people who want to work with you and that you mesh with.
We would be talking after the showings for a half hour, 40 minutes about many different things, but a lot of times about restaurants, bars, food in general. We have a pizza oven in our backyard. They are dying to come over to have pizza. But some people don't want to talk for 40 minutes after a showing. And you have to know that too. So you kind of find your vibe with a client and you follow their cue, and it's reading the room. It is being sensitive to who they are. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the husband wants to be in and out in 5 minutes, and the wife wants to explore every nook and cranny in the house and answer a lot of questions. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. You just have to really accommodate what people want.
You have to be sensitive to those styles. Again, it's like matchmaking. It's like dating. So I think we've got it narrowed down to step 1, scour the internet, look at reviews, and step 2, maybe talk to friends and family who have recently had experiences. Were they good? Were they bad? So word of mouth. And then step 3, it sounds like set up a meeting with potential, maybe, would you set up a meeting with one real estate agent, maybe 2? I mean, how do we begin that process?
I mean, once you find the one,
exactly,
like you call one of us, I mean, you're done.
What are things that I'm going to ask an agent to make sure, like, I want to know, like, when I go on a first date with somebody, I'm going to be like, do you want to get married and do you want to have children? Because if you don't, I respect that, but I want to get married and have kids. What are some of the important questions you got to ask an agent when you sit down with them to make sure they are the one?
Well, usually it's transactional because somebody will call you because they see a house that they want to see. And so that meeting is usually finding out who they are, what their time frame is, where they're looking at, why they're looking. Do they have to sell something before they buy something else? Are they pre-approved for a mortgage? All of that history. It's a very organic conversation. If you're seeing a house, fine. If you're not, or if you're preparing to list, that's a whole another conversation, because that is a lot more planning.
Right.
What would you tell me the strategy is to list? And everybody's got their own when it comes to that.
With me, what I do when I am interviewing a new potential, so they're interviewing me, I'm interviewing them.
Right.
Is literally in my head what's going on. So a lot of times I have people calling me from referrals. So that's a different conversation. And when I invite them into the office to have that first conversation and meeting and let's see if we match kind of situation, I don't even get into real estate right away. I talk to them about them. What do you do for a living? I see you brought dad. I just had a client come in last week and she brought her dad. I was like, yes, I love that. I have a very cozy spot in my office where I'm like, okay, you guys plop there. I'm going to pop up here, and I kick my feet up and we just talk about life a little bit, right? And then I start saying, so, where have you started with the process? Have you done anything yet? Have you shopped a little bit online? And I go through the process of, here's what we're going to offer you. We're going to offer you help with this, and I give them the list of everything that we're doing for them.
Do you recommend going with the listing agent if you're somebody who's looking for a house, or do you recommend getting your own representative?
Well, of course we think you should have your own representation. There's no doubt about that.
Why?
They can go about that route. But the thing is that if a buyer was to call a listing agent directly, they don't realize that they don't owe them anything as far as offering advice and whatnot. The fiduciary duty is to the seller. So they can't really offer them advice on the appropriate way to go about the transaction if they wanted to purchase it or make an offer anyway. If they had their own representation, they do have somebody up to bat for them to explain everything. If it didn't work out with that house, they have a consistent contact to set up showings. As a buyer, you now have to have a buyer broker agreement, whereas you didn't necessarily have that before. Not everybody used it. So That's another conversation, and all the more reason you want to sit down with people in advance, build that relationship, make sure they understand how it works and how you get paid to do what you are doing, because you are a professional.
Right.
So I'd like to clarify something. A listing agent can have somebody come without an agent, and it's called dual agency. They can handle both sides. But their fiduciary responsibility is to the seller. So is it possible to do that? Absolutely. Have I done it? Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Same. However, if you would like to have your own representation, then that's why people have buyer's agents and people have listing agent.
It's like going to court.
So,
Like you could rep yourself in the courtroom,
Yeah.
but would you rather
Yes.
have a professional who has been on their toes and
Exactly.
known
Create
every twist and
credits.
turn and negotiate? Right.
if need be,
Right.
and so on.
Okay.
Get you through the whole process because it is a bumpy ride. But we've been doing this for so long. We can handle
Right.
multiple transactions at the same time, whereas for them, it's so overwhelming. We got you.
All right, so we've sat down with our agents, and now we have an agent that we feel comfortable and close with, and this is my bud. I've got Helen because she likes to eat and I like to eat. So that's gonna be our relationship. Is we're gonna go to a house and we're gonna get a bite and we're gonna do this, stuff like that. But it's also interesting, and what I want to hear from you two ladies who kind of come from different backgrounds, different generations, and different styles. I think you not only want to see your agent work well with you, with the
Right.
client, but you want to see your agent work well with other agents. And that's a big part of the job.
Relationships are absolutely it's the biggest thing that I put that at step one,
Yeah.
at that top tier relationships with your clients, with realtors and brokers and loan officers and insurance people, you name it. The relationships are so important. Why would you burn a bridge?
Right.
Why would you dig your heels? It is so helpful when you go to mingling things or going to events and you get to, I always say, especially to newer agents who are on my team, let's go to this event and let's just go meet some new people. It's important for them to put a face to your name, and so that someday if you do write an offer on one of their listings, they know who you are.
Exactly.
You're not,
It's very
so
important.
it's so important.
You're not going to like every person you meet, and you're not going to like every agent or contractor or person in this home real estate world that you come across. How do you work with people that you don't necessarily click with?
I don't think it's a matter of liking them or not, but it is a matter of integrity and
Yeah.
respect for the business, respect for other people. It is your reputation. It is, if you're playing nice in the sandbox and you have a good rep within the field, it just helps everybody all the way around.
There's a real estate code of ethics, and what do you think is on that list or as part of that code?
There is. The National Association of Realtors has a code of ethics.
Right.
And it includes many, many things, but it's managing your business with integrity, is not bad-mouthing other agents. There's a long list, but those are the two biggies. But it's basically do unto others, and it's common sense.
Well, and let's put it this way. Let's say Heidi is the listing agent on a property and you're taking a client to go see her property and it works out really well and you all have a great experience. I mean, are you going to show more Heidi properties?
Not necessarily how it works, but when you see their name, when there's people that you just
Bingo.
really enjoy working with, and you get to go and show one of those properties to your client, and you're touring it, and you're ready to write an offer, you're like, yes, you know what I mean? And you jump on the phone, you're like, hey, I'm writing an offer. Do you have any? It just makes the experience a lot more fun for me when I love the other agent on the other end.
You're more motivated.
It's like,
we went through this boom where you guys were doing really, really well. People were selling their homes. People were buying up homes up here because people were leaving the city. It was right before COVID and during COVID was a great time for you guys. Things have changed a little bit. And so this sandbox that you've kind of expressed, Helen, that you've talked about, it's a smaller sandbox and you guys are digging holes closer together. How has that changed the landscape or the dynamic with agents? Has it gotten more competitive? Has it made you closer?
There is something called the Breakfast of Champions. It is sponsored by the Women's Council of Realtors once a year in Albany. 3,600 agents in the Capital District. Every single person in volume was honored. It's still unbelievable how much real estate is out there. I don't think you need to be a cutthroat ASS, as if I don't
You bad
curse,
girl.
please. You do not have to be a cutthroat. There's enough business for everybody.
There is.
You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to steal things. You don't have to stomp all over people to get business.
I would say 95% of us are really great.
I would agree.
Including us. So anyway, no, but I have such a reputation in my area, my community. I'll have agents texting me saying, hey, Heidi, what do you think the value of this home is? I'm like, do your homework, brother. I'm like, by the way, that's in my neighborhood, 500. You got this. But they know that I'm not going to, like, address, like, everything. And I'm like, good for
You're
you.
not gonna steal
I'm
it.
like, let me think, do I have any clients I could bring over there? That would be amazing. But I am not going to go knock on their door saying,
Don't use them, use me.
yeah,
Right.
like, but there are people who will do that. And I'm just not that person.
It raises the bar for everybody. It's just good for the industry. There's no need for and I think that's what, gives us a bad rap, is that the few bad apples who have, over the years, over the course of time, it's like, I don't want to say used car salesman because I love the guy who sells me my used cars. He's the best.
You know what? I actually, again, these guys are the experts. I'm just the storyteller, but I'm the every person who has gone through the buying and selling process. And I feel like in our area and in Saratoga, there really is a good group of agencies and agents. And I've never felt in my own personal experience like there was some kind of, I don't know, weird pecking order in this town of agents. I don't know.
I don't think that at all.
No, I think it's a good community of agents. I think
we work well together. There's definitely a lot of agents in Saratoga. People who collaborate are the winners.
Yeah.
And it is the way to go in my book.
Yeah.
So
what's helped you, Helen? We talked about this with Heidi. Heidi has her brass tacks, that brand that helped her connect with clients. What's helped you connect with clients the most? Is it food?
No, it is not food.
Okay.
Before we, whatever. I get it.
Helen, what? I would eat that up. No pun intended, but
I do have many a meeting over breakfast or lunch, without a doubt. What helped me was being the wife of, when we moved here from Long Island in 1999, my husband was a co-founder of Paleo Communications, which became the largest privately held business in Saratoga Springs for many years. As the wife of Guy, my husband, I became part of the Paleo family, and everybody was coming from somewhere else and relocating, including us from Long Island. So I was the welcome wagon lady. I helped people connect.
That was your niche.
I wanted to get people, especially the wives, because that was me. Oh, and then we adopted our first daughter shortly after moving here. So,
moms.
I was like doctors, hair people, nail people, restaurants, childcare, pediatricians.
You helped them with more than just their home. Find everything else.
Well, I wasn't an agent.
Yeah.
I wasn't a realtor at that time.
Before you were a realtor.
I was just a wife. It wasn't until after I was home with not one, but my second daughter, that I was home for 15 years and then decided to go back to work. And because of my background with all of the people that I met at Paleo, from being a mom of kids, from being on every committee, I had such a deep, deep connection to the community that real estate was a very natural thing.
All right. So that sounds like, that's how you start, is you find your niche, and then that niche kind of expands and grows. You were the welcome wagon, and Heidi was the veterans, and look at how both of your careers have blossomed. That's really incredible. Hunting for a home is not a one-size-fits-all situation, right? So that's why different people like different agencies and agents.
People come in all the time and they say, we want a cottage with 2 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, etc. And I always say to people, yes, tell me what you want, tell me the wants and the needs. But with the market the way it is, that there's only so many houses on the market, right? So the evolution of where you start and where you end up with are 2 different things. And I always say, and some agents will disagree, they don't want to waste their time showing them every single thing.
Right.
I say, if there's something on the market that you want to see that gives you perspective, I will show you anything and everything. I don't care how long it takes.
Right.
That's the way I am, because in the end, when you see something in person, and photos don't do anything, you should always see it in person. You don't know that you might say to yourself, you know what? I thought I wanted this, but I'm really fine with that. Or look at this. I never saw one of these before. I'll take it.
But the same thing goes for looking for an agent, which is why it's so important. I'm connecting finding the home to finding the right agent. You might, I might look at Heidi and say, she looks kind of like me. She's got long blonde hair. She's into accessorizing, and we meet and we don't hit it off, let's say. We would hit it off. We do hit it off. But my point is, there's more than what meets the eye, right?
Well, and maybe that's a question that you ask a person, an agent that you're interviewing, to say, I think, are you okay with us wanting to see, every single house? Or what's your style when it comes to that? Or what's your opinion?
Right. Trust me enough to let me take you a little bit outside your comfort zone because, hey, maybe we'll open a new door to a new type of interest in a home, a new type of home that you never thought you could consider. So that's why trust is of utmost importance.
The things coming on the market might be more scattered. Just knowing that I'm not going to be sending you houses every day or every week even. And that, even when you're in the market. So when you're in the market to buy a house, you're looking at your phone probably every half hour. Honestly, it's addicting. When you're in the market to buy a new bike, when you're in the market for a car, you become a little bit,
obsessed.
Maybe it's me, but I get obsessive where I'm like, okay, what are the reviews on that? So more than likely, my buyers a lot of times are finding the houses on their own and letting me know what they want to see, which I prefer, honestly. Unless there's something off market, I might send them or for sale by owner and they didn't notice it. But there are a lot of times we're looking at their little list, setting up appointments within a timely fashion, because in this market, you do have to usually get out there pretty quickly, within a day, 2 max, according to what the seller's schedule is. And so, we're kind of eliminating things out of the gates.
Time now for the market update, otherwise known as What the Helen in this market. So the highest right now listing in Saratoga that just came on the market this morning is at the Adelphi Residences on Broadway for a cool $2,050,000. $2 million. Why not? Let's chip in. And the least expensive that came on the market this morning is at Carista Drive in Saratoga Springs, which is in the Geyser Crest neighborhood, for $399,900. So there is a huge gamut, right?
Heidi, what brought you to this area and drew you to this area to work here and to live here?
I love it here. It's just beautiful.
Are you from here?
From the area?
Yeah.
Saratoga?
Well, just into the capital region.
Born and raised in Rotterdam.
Oh, and the name, too, is so appropriate. I'm sure you've never heard that before.
Nah, we got to come up with a slogan, people. Help me out. Right. Heidi Rotter from Rotterdam. It's my home base. I know it like the back of my hand. I love it.
Heidi Rotterdam.
Damn. That's my home base, my hometown. My parents lived in Saratoga for about, 9 years. I lived with them for about 4 years when my son was a baby. And I just love it here. So born and raised, yes. But I've bounced around the areas. And, what's so much fun being in real estate is that, I go within an hour radius. And so it's just great to go to different areas all the time.
Time to transition now to our real estate horror stories, which for those of our guests who are just tuning in, maybe you haven't heard previous horror stories. We're not talking about necessarily haunted houses here. It's kind of like the quirky, interesting stories that come out of real estate or home buying or home design. Helen has shared, her quirky, fun story. Definitely not a spooky story.
Yeah.
Some of them might be spooky, but we want to hear from Heidi's.
Oh.
What is Heidi's real estate horror story?
In 15 years, honestly, I think I've only had a couple little nuggets that stick in my brain that stick out for that. So back in my day working for the flipper, I'll call it, I was wholesaling one of the properties, and it was a multi-unit out in Watervliet. And I was touring the property with some buyers who called me that were interested in it. We walked through. I mean, the house is a mess. Renters, they just left it in shambles and everything. And I knew what I was walking into. You dress appropriately so your clothes don't get stinky and all that crap, So anyway, so walking outside, going down the stairs, we're in the backyard. It was already gloomy, right? So the day was gloomy, rainy, gross. I went to the walkout basement door, which was barely a door. It was like it's like a panel, you know what I mean? And it was attached by hinges and all that. But I knew that it had like one of those locks on it, with the key at the bottom. I don't know what to call that lock. But anyway, it wasn't my lock. I had the key for this little bike key, like lock. Yeah, thank you. So anyway, I'm like, well, that don't look right. It was unlocked. And I'm like, I'm the last person here and I locked it. So I'm like, this is weird. So lack of better judgment, I opened it and the customers I was showing the property to were behind me. And I just, it's a little strange. It's not like this. I always have pepper spray with me. So I was just like, I wanted to be a police officer. I'm already like strong. I'm like, all right, I know what to do if I'm going to go in here. I am not.
So if you hire Heidi, you also get a bodyguard.
That's right.
I had no business doing this. But anyway, I opened it up. I opened it slowly. I'm like, hello. I'm like slowly entering. Hello. Would you believe it?
Did you expect anyone to respond?
No. Not one. But anyway, I just thought maybe something happened or another showing maybe didn't lock it properly. Yeah. So I was like, hello. And then all of a sudden this head pops out and he's like, hi. And I'm like,
oh, God.
Hello. And I said, I'm Heidi, the listing agent. Who are you? And, I just wasn't expecting it. There was a couch in the basement. I just thought they had it there, whatever. So this man, again, I should have been a lot more scared. But he was standing there and he's like, I stay here. And I'm like, what's your name?
What do you mean
and he
you
told
stay
me,
here?
I'm like, all right. So I'm like,
squatter?
He technically the owners of the property knew he was staying there.
Okay.
I'm like, it would have been really nice if they told me
that.
Yes, he was not there
No.
the other umpteen times I had been showing it, so I just wasn't expecting that.
Just kind of crashed there from time to time.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yep. I would bring him a cheeseburger. I'm like, here, are you okay?
You became
I just
friends with
became
him?
friends with him. He was like, honestly, he wasn't scary. I was just, wow.
It's just
So that was like
unexpected.
one of those freaky moments where, wow.
didn't know what
I
we were
sold
getting
it.
at.
It was
That's-
fine. I told him he had
that's
to
tough.
vacate. I'm like,
And he listened?
he did.
Did you
He
find
did.
him a new basement to
No.
squat in?
No, I didn't. But anyway, that was probably one that really sticks out to me.
I feel like when you're a real estate agent, like
You're on guard all
you're
the
on
time.
guard.
Your
You
clients don't even know.
Well, because I feel like you're in people's homes, right? You're in their personal space. It doesn't get much more personal than that. And you're not just in the main area. You're showing and looking in every single room. That's very personal. So
Yeah. I once showed a house that had a room that was locked, and I said to the owner, so what about this room? And he said, well, that will remain locked until the house is sold, and that's all I will tell you.
did you ever find out the room that he wouldn't unlock?
It was a bomb shelter-y, like an apocalypse.
Oh, like a safe room.
Don't you think that a buyer should know what's in
I'm
there?
not buying a house without
Well,
opening a
that-
room.
Yeah, and I believe this person also had several propane gas tanks on his property in case
He was a prepper.
He was a prepper.
He was a doomsday prepper. All right, well, that was interesting. So if you've got a real estate horror story, we want to hear from you. The ultimate goal with this segment is to have people send in their ideas, because it's not just realtors who have the horror stories. It's also the buyers, the sellers,
for sure.
the designers.
Oh, for sure.
If it's too weird and you don't want your name attached to it, I get it. So you can send it anonymously, and where you can send it to us is at sellingsaratogapod@gmail.com. Again, that's sellingsaratogapod@gmail.com. You can also message us on Instagram. Our Instagram account is Selling Saratoga Podcast. And we really can't wait to hear them all and share them all. I mean, they're just so much fun for our listeners. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and for joining us. Heidi, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God.
Heidi
Thank
is
you
going to be
for having me.
Yeah. Heidi's going to be a return guest. She's a featured guest, so she will be back sharing more information with us. We're going to have, sometimes this table is going to turn into kind of a panel, so we'll have another guest with Heidi. Be sure to tune in for the next episode, which will be every 2 weeks. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on Instagram, and on Facebook. And we can't wait for next time. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.